Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be over something that a lot of people are not happy about, and that was the Teen Wolf movie that Paramount Plus recently released. Basically, to get down to it, people are tearing this movie apart, and it's really disappointing considering myself that I was a huge fan of the TV show, and when they announced that this movie was coming, I was so excited, and then I sat down to watch it, and just almost none of it made any sense. Like, yes, I understand they wanted to bring back all these characters and all these actors to kind of have a mini reunion and bring back this storyline that was pretty popular, I guess. I remember bits and pieces of it, but they brought back the storyline, all these characters, and they just kind of threw them together in a big clusterfuck, and it just didn't make sense. The story was very slow paced and just had plot hole after plot hole and characters that come back that really shouldn't have come back at all. We'll kind of get into that and a little bit of everything else. But as a whole, I really, really wanted to like this movie because I love Tyler Posey. I think he's a great actor. And as I said, I really enjoyed the series. It came to me in a part of my life where I was kind of off doing my own thing. I was alone. I was not around family. And, I really got hooked on it. And then it ended, I guess, on a strong note. There was some weak points. But as the series is concerned, great piece of work and everything. But then they come back and do this movie. And I am just kind of at a loss for words, I guess. The movie focuses around Scott returning to Beacon Hills after a great evil is drawing everyone back. You had Scott, Lydia, Liam, Jackson, and just a handful of other characters that were there from the beginning all come back to kind of face this thing. And it was all about what they thought anyways was Allison being stuck in kind of a limbo, not being able to move on to peace, 15 years after her death. And they're just now kind of exploring this, I guess. And just, with her father coming back and kind of getting involved too, it just really falls flat. And I don't know what to really think because I was really hoping that it was just going to be this amazing movie. Once they started announcing all the cast and what the movie was going to be about, and then we got all these casting announcements, and then Dylan O'Brien was not a part of it, a lot of people were like, then kind of what's the point? Why do this if you're not going to bring back one of the biggest and most popular characters of the show? We waited for quite some time to find out why he wasn't doing it. And then all these reviews started coming out about Dylan O'Brien and what he was saying, and just also some not so good reviews, or also some not so good interviews or questions being answered from actors that weren't coming back along with Dylan O'Brien. We all know that Arden Cho was supposed to come back to play Kyo Nakamura once again. It ended up not happening, all because they didn't want to pay her what she was worth. She made up a pretty significant part of the story involving this movie villain, and they decided not to bring her back. Well, she turned it down. She turned it down, like I said, because they weren't going to pay her as much as the rest of the cast. They weren't going to pay her what she was worth, and then Dylan O'Brien said he didn't want to do it because he was happy with where his character ended up, and that's all well and good. But to see where these characters are, because it takes place with a 15-year time jump, and there's just a lot of questions and a lot of why is this person here, and what are we going to do with all this? And just, it was a lot of stumble and fall along the way getting this movie done. And as a result, it made something that a lot of people just aren't happy with. I really wanted to like it. I mean, there are parts of it that I like. The I like the happy ending that Scott gets, but all at the same time, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And just the direction that they went with a couple of other characters, but kind of breaking it down with this great evil that's supposed to be coming back, and they get the visions of Allison and everything with between Scott and her father, getting visions of her being back, and then they go back to figure out that she is having trouble crossing over into peace or whatever after she died, 15 years prior. And so they think that they need to do this ritual to get her to go past, but then in doing the ritual, they actually bring her back, which kind of sets off the story that the Nukitsune wanted to bring her back to eliminate Scott. It's just kind of all downhill from there. She comes back, and one thing that I did notice in this movie, it was hard not to, there was a lot of ass in this fucking movie, where they really took that's R rating, just and kind of ran with it. You hear the F bomb getting dropped left and right. There's Allison ass, there's Malia ass, and then there's our Hellhound ass. I can't remember. Oh, Parrish. They flash his ass. Him and Malia are together for some inexplicable reason. Kind of going from there, it's all about reminding Allison who she is, and the Nukitsune wants Scott to die in her arms like she died in his, to kind of give this thing more power or something. It's little things like this that made me kind of not really pay attention too closely. And so the whole movie is about doing this and then taking his friends into this parallel little world that belongs to the Nugitsune. And the little things that really piss people off, along with Arden Cho not coming back, they just introduced this random other Asian character that is with Liam, who is also a character that serves near no purpose in the fucking movie. They did it for the sole purpose of having a Kitsune in the movie to play its part, when they should have just brought Arden Cho back, or at least her parents, because they played a major role in that particular storyline back in the series, and they just decided not to do it, and just a lot of people got really pissed about it, and me included. They brought this character in to play this part, served no purpose to the whole fucking movie. She has a handful of scenes with Liam, who just, they could have done without him. I mean, he was there to be the boyfriend or whatever of this new chick, and just served no purpose past that. The whole story really revolves around Tyler Posey and Tyler Hoechlin, and just, they are really trying way too hard in this movie, and it makes me just so fucking sad, because they took all these characters and they crushed them into this 2+ hour film, and still made no time for each individual character to play some sort of part that either had character development or some closure for a certain character. And the thing that really pissed me off, they brought Jackson back, and yes, I was never a huge fan of Jackson because he's a huge dick, but they brought him in and kind of did him dirty the same way they did at the end of his run on the show, where he finally gets the transformation into the wolf, and yes, he's still that other creature, I can't recall the name of it. They do this to him again. He comes in kind of big showboating and kind of grand entrance. Lydia called him, so he came, blah, blah, blah. And he literally does nothing for the story. He's in a handful of scenes. We see him kind of crack this little puzzle code that leads them to where they need to get Allison to help her cross over or whatever. And then other than that, he's just there to kind of be a smartass to the rest of the movie. His kind of it just really made me mad, because they did not take advantage and have him be in battle of any kind. We don't see him transform. We see some eye glowing. That's about it. And then other than that, he could have not been in the movie and made zero fucking difference. We're kind of moving past that. Malia and Parrish, they're together. It's purely sexual, apparently. But kind of going deeper into that, Parrish wants more, she doesn't, because they've kind of taken her character and kind of made her kind of the little groupie. Because she started off with Styles, and they had an actual deep storyline. There was a lot of emotion behind their connection and everything. And then they ended up splitting up because they were using the whole Lydia and Styles thing kind of as a huge build-up. But they took her. She ended up with Scott at the end of the series. And then at some point in that little break between the show and the movie, they split up. And then she ends up with Paris, and they're just fucking around. And that's the basis of their relationship. And just, she doesn't serve really any purpose in the movie, like a lot of these characters. And just, it's infuriating that they took this movie, what could have been a great opportunity, and just really did nothing with it. They kind of put these actors in front of the camera and said, hey, do what you want. And with that, they just dropped the F-bomb left and right and did some strange fucking things aside from that. And then along with that, Tyler Hoechlin, his character, Tyler Hoechlin's Derek, who I guess was brought in mid-production, possibly. And because he originally was not in the script, but then he got kind of added in there at some point, I guess. Then they introduce his son, but at the same time, they never, ever reveal who the mother of that kid is. They never hint at it or anything, and that's kind of annoying. Yes, it would not have served really any point to the plot line, even though the plot line was just up and down all over the place and just kind of pointless on a lot of aspects. but they introduce his son Eli, and just he serves little to no purpose. They have kind of a moment, or at least they have a moment, because throughout the whole movie, Eli cannot turn. He's not really tapping into that wolf side of him, so he can't heal or anything like that. And then Derek goes on to reveal towards the end of the movie that the reason he can't turn is because when Eli was a baby, a coyote got into the house, I guess, and Derek went all alpha and scared the shit out of these coyotes, and at the same time scared his son to the point where he was really just, he had a mental block as far as trying to tap into his wolf side. Other than that, the movie was a clusterfuck, or dumpster fire, whatever you want to call it, and it does have its high points. It's not about me just shitting on the movie completely. And, as much as I really looked forward to it, it was really kind of lackluster. And that's really disappointing. And kind of to go from the crap to the decent parts, like, well, no, here's one more crap moment, I think, but this is something that was decided by the actor who played out this part, which was Tyler Hoechlin again. Derek dies. He sacrifices himself at the end of the movie, and I read that this was brought to him by Jeff Davis, said, hey, how would you like to die in this movie? And he totally went on board with it. I don't know if it's because they don't want to leave that door open for him to possibly return down the road, but at this point, I don't think it's going to happen regardless, because I don't think they're going to get a second movie or any kind of series involving these characters, at least, because they got this whole other Wolfpack series, which I won't even get into that today. I'll save that for another video. But then he dies, but the only good part, I guess, about his death was he died a true alpha, because towards the end of his life, or towards that moment of death, his eyes go red and he gets to die a true alpha, which it kind of brings things full circle for him, because in the beginning of the series, that was all he wanted. He wanted to be an alpha, and he took it from his uncle. And just another character that really served no purpose to the storyline was Peter Hale. He was there also to be a smart ass, literally throughout little bits of the movie, and he has one kind of weird scene where he smells the ground, and just it seems completely unnecessary. But kind of getting past all that, like I mentioned, there were a couple of decent parts. I like the fact that Scott got his happy ending, because if you're really a huge fan of the series, we all know that Scott really never got over Allison after she died. He was really broken by that, and even though he had Arden Cho's character come in and kind of be his new love interest after that, and they were together for a short time before she left the series, you always knew that that's where his heart truly lied, and they had such a good chemistry throughout the TV show, and just they played off of each other, and just it was really emotional. And just her death scene back in the series, that's really hard to get through, because they played so well off each other. And so that was one part I really liked about the movie, is where he got his happy ending, even though it was kind of awkward, but at the same time, it was good for the character, and we got to see him and her go off and continue his life in LA, which is where he went off to. He hadn't been back to Beacon Hills in over a decade, and just he had not really wanted to be in that alpha role. He wanted to go out and find out what life is all about. But him and Allison getting that happy ending was one of the better parts of the movie, even though a lot of it didn't make sense. Like this whole scene where they're back fighting the new Kitsune, where the Asian character that they brought in to replace Arden Cho was basically there because they needed a Kitsune. That was the only reason that they needed this character, because at one point Scott uses her Kitsune Fox Fire or whatever to protect himself from being killed, because there was this whole thing where Allison had to shoot him in the heart, and she does, but the Kitsune protects him from that certain death. And then the Foxfire goes back into this other character, and then that's really about it for her. She is a pointless character, and they brought her in for the sake of having an Asian character for this Kitsune. Otherwise, the whole movie would have made even less sense than it already did. So it was just a drag all around for the most part. There were a handful of points in the movie, like Coach, him coming back and doing his thing. He's a comedian anyways, so he really played off that, and the few scenes that he got, he really nailed it, and just it was perfect with him. But the movie as a whole, and the wait that we went through to get to it, and it seems like it was really rushed, and just as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, people are just tearing into it. And I really, really tried to like this movie. I was really looking forward to it, but sadly, it does not meet expectations. It really does not do justice for a lot of characters. It brings them in to serve no point to the plotline or to the story or even to the character itself. It does not do any justice for the characters that they play. They come in, do their thing, and just, other than that, they don't serve anything to the whole movie. And so I was really bummed about that. And just, because you know that the actors worked really hard, and Tyler Posey, he loves this character. He's made it very well known that he loves this character. He will play it as long as people will allow him to. But after this, I don't see him coming back to this unless they figure out some way to make up for this disaster. So it's really just a drag that it went that way, and just they completely destroyed the legacy of the show and just made a lot of fans unhappy in the process. So anyways, guys, that is kind of my rant review for this movie. Really looked forward to it, but it just fell flat after all the waiting and all the anticipation about it. And so I don't think we'll probably see these characters again anytime soon. But I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave the likes, leave comments, because I want to hear what you guys have to say about it. Did you hate it too, or did you really love it, or was there kind of a mixed bag of what you thought about the movie? And as always, please subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. So until next time, guys, I'll catch you later. Bye.